The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest stories in the NBA.
Who needs Anthony Davis? Not the Lakers in Washington, 134-96.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
The Lakers just blow through the... I can't, like, god-awful doesn't describe what the Wizards are, but they're bad.
I want to emphasize from the jump that the Lakers did a lot of things legitimately well in this game, especially, we'll get into it, approach, and they should be commended for it. That being said, holy hell, these Wizards are awful. Like, how the F did they win 6 games? Awful. Like, I was thinking about this. The greatest moment of Kyle Kuzma's career as a Wizard is the pink sweater photo. Like, honestly, that's the high point of his time in DC. And it brings me, as somebody who really liked Kuzma when we covered him and thought he was an important part of that title team, it brings me no pleasure to say this. I'm not looking to pile on him, but my God, did he make a mistake when he said, don't trade me to Dallas?
Nope. Should have gotten traded to Dallas. Would have been better.
I mean, bro.
Go ahead and get traded, man.
Because now it's harder to move the guy.
He's having a terrible year.
Yes, he is.
And so, look, I will even, you talked about approach and things like that. I'm probably going to get myself into trouble in this episode for praising the Lakers as much as I'm going to over the course of this episode. But I actually do feel like, and I wrote about this for the newsletter, of course, Locked On Lakers newsletter, you go to lockedondaily.com and subscribe to it there. I actually think this was an important win in a lot of ways. Again, Washington's awful, so I'm not talking about like throwing a parade or anything, but Lakers playing without Anthony Davis, that we knew was going to happen. Everybody could prepare for it. It was the first game without AD of a stretch of some amount of games that maybe takes into the All-Star break, maybe not. The Lakers certainly projecting optimism about the long-term impact of this injury, so to speak, on AD, and they don't think it's going to be a long-term deal. But also no Dorian Finney-Smith. He was out with a shoulder contusion, and Gabe Vincent still out as well. So the Lakers were down through, one massive part of the roster and 2 significant pieces in the rotation. And given how they played, Andy, against Philadelphia and Charlotte, I don't think it was a given that they were going to come out and put on this kind of performance. They should, but whether or not it was a given, I'm not buying that for a second.
I think if we've made one thing clear this season, professionalism in that way is not a given with this team at all. We've talked about how I think they all intellectually understand that in order for this group to go as far as they want to, save some type of unexpectedly big move at the deadline, they have to be an execution-based team. They have to be an effort-based team. They have to be an energy-based team, focus-based team. They all understand this. Like, hell, they've all talked about it openly. Whether they've actually embraced it is at best an open question, which means a game like tonight, even when you look at it and say, guys, no, seriously, you have to win this game, it's not something you could take for granted that they would come into it with the right approach. And I thought, just looking at the halftime, some of the halftime numbers, 78-45, they were up, which obviously is 33 points, is a massive, massive lead. But they only had 4 turnovers in the first half. And then they had 4 in the third quarter, but like one of them was a Trey Jamison offensive foul. 2 of them were Jackson Hayes passes, which mean, respectfully, I don't think Jackson Hayes is an awful passer for his position, but you don't look for Jackson Hayes to be somebody running your offense. But like, they took care of the ball. Their splits at the half were 60% from the field, 53% from deep, 100% at the line. They out-rebounded Washington 30-13. Other than Jordan Poole, no Wizard had double figures, 14 points, but 11 shots. And Shake Milton, who we're going to talk about, he had a terrific game. He had 9 points in the half. He almost outscored the Wizards bench himself. Like, top to bottom, there was a seriousness from this team from the jump that I hope they can recognize. You got to do this every game.
Yeah, and I mean, this is how they're going to have to do it with AD out. And obviously, look, the next 4 games get
got to do it with AD in.
Yeah, well, right, but I mean, like, this stretch coming up, especially, like, you know, this is how it's going to have to be until Davis is back in the lineup. You have no safety, you know, security blanket there, and you know, it's going to be harder in New York on Saturday. It's going to be harder against the Clippers. It's going to be harder against the Warriors. It's going to be harder against the Pacers.
It's going to be harder against any team that isn't the Wizards.
It is, and that'll get slightly easier against Utah. But even then, that's going to be harder than what Utah's not this bad. But even though, what I really liked about this game, and you know, you look at approach, you look at focus, you look at all that stuff, is they never had a moment in this game where they said, okay, yeah, we got this. Even though it was abundantly clear that they, in fact, had got this. Like there was a zero, like Washington was game to be like, for like 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And as soon as there was a little bit of a push and a gap, they were like, yeah, we're done. And you could just sort of tell, like there wasn't any real fight there or discipline or anything.
I don't blame them. I blame them in the sense that this is your job. You're getting paid millions of dollars. You're supposed to be putting up a fight. I'm just saying I don't blame them if they can't come up with the motivation.
This is their second 16-game losing streak of the season. Second. Like, they came into this game having lost 15 straight. And that wasn't their longest losing streak of the season. Atlanta has lost to this team twice. Shame on them. Shame on you, Atlanta Hawks.
They've only played 47 games to have 2 different 16-game losing streaks. Like, that is in its own right actually pretty damn impressive.
They started 2-2.
Wow. Woo.
You imagine, like, they were like, maybe we got there. We're going to shock the world this year. No,
I'm Alex Sarr. I demand a trade now.
Yeah. I think I called him Olivier on TV. That's his brother. But anyway, that's okay. But like, this team has done that thing where they just assume, okay, the game's over. The other team's not going to keep trying, and they're bad, and it's ours. And that's how you run a lead up to 40 or whatever it was. And I think this, to me, is one of those times, and we talked about it heading into the game. Sometimes losing your best player is the thing that will drive your focus, because you know if you don't do it right, you're going to get embarrassed. And while the Lakers probably could have played a bad game and still won, a bad game where you beat the Wizards by like 6 and LeBron's playing deep into the fourth quarter as opposed to 26 minutes, which is great. That leaves a really bad taste, even if you end up winning it. And so the fact that they didn't have to do any of that is great.
Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's just icing on the cake. And the one bet you could look at with $5, NBA. Dallas Mavericks travel north to face the Detroit Pistons and are favored, but only just. FanDuel has the Mavs favored by a single solitary point. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59.
The Wolves blew out the Jazz on Thursday night.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast.
You know, setting it up, obviously the Wolves coming off a big win in Phoenix on Wednesday at the time to move to, 5 games above 500 for the first time this season, a fourth straight win, a bit of a comeback win after a slow start in that game, and the Chris Finch ejection, the whole thing. So it was fair to be a little bit concerned about what was going to happen on Thursday night. Right, two games in 24 hours, both on the road, traveling from the desert to altitude. Utah, as we talked about on Thursday's show, just like they have not been playing all their best players together. There's a clear objective there in Utah about how much they want to win this year. The answer is not too much. So, like between Lauri Markkanen and John Collins and Jordan Clarkson and all these guys, they were being Walker Kessler. Being judicious about who is playing and when. So we didn't know who was going to play. Turns out they all played. And Jack and I put it out on the postcast last night. Utah owns the Wolves pick. So it's in their best interest for the Wolves to be worse, right? To lose more games. So they played everybody. And we know the Wolves have struggled against bad teams this year. They're, around 500 against teams that are below 500, which is not good for a team that has, designs on being a top 4 seed at the very least in the Western Conference. So it's fair to be concerned headed into this game. And we learned that Mike Conley would be out with a sprained thumb. He, of course, played Wednesday, but Naz Reid didn't play Wednesday. He was sick. Both Reid and Dillingham were on the injury reports Wednesday with injury report with illness on Wednesday, but they both played Thursday. So the Wolves were without Mike Conley, but that was the only significant absence for Minnesota. Again, fair to be concerned. And sure enough, true to form, unfortunately, the Wolves came out extremely flat. The offense looked lackadaisical. They just weren't locked in at all. The defense was okay, but what was happening is the Wolves were turning the ball over. Utah was getting easy stuff in transition early in the game, in the first quarter. And Minnesota never really got their half-court defense set. Utah made a couple of tough shots. They've got a couple of tough shot makers. I mean, I didn't mention Colin Sexton earlier, but Colin Sexton hit some tough shots in this game. When Jordan Clarkson got his chance, he did that as well. Sexton was obviously the bigger problem in this one, but Utah got off to a good start. It was 25-10. The Wolves were down by 15 points in the first quarter, and they ended up winning this game by 25. Safe to say they figured it out. And it became an onslaught. Like, it was more, the defense was just okay for Minnesota. I mean, middle of the game, actually, the Wolves only gave up 44 points combined between the second and third quarters. So middle of the game, the Wolves defense was pretty good, especially third quarter. First and fourth quarter, not as much. Obviously, fourth quarter was garbage time. First quarter started really badly for Minnesota. But this was more about Minnesota's offense. And it was really impressive how they were able to generate open threes. And then when they did it, they made them. They struggled to shoot from outside the arc recently against Phoenix and other recent matchups where they were generating the open shots. They just weren't making them. Nickeil Alexander-Walker hit 5 threes in the Phoenix game. He hit 5 threes in this game. Naz Reid was 4 for 5 from 3. Ant was 6 of 9. And Rob Dillingham was 3 of 5. And a lot of these were, a couple were Rob walking into a 3 in transition because the transition defense was so bad and he's obviously willing to shoot the basketball. Others were, Rob skipped past to Nickeil in the corner for a 3. Ant finds a teammate outside the arc for a 3. They were actually generating the open looks instead of just taking tough contested looks or forced looks toward the end of the shot clock, or just, this is an early shot clock 3 because I'm open because I'm 3 feet beyond the arc and I'm just going to shoot it. There wasn't a whole lot of that. This was actual quality jumpers that Minnesota was able to generate in this game. And a big part of it was Ant. The scoring total is obviously what pops out, 36 points, which, by the way, 36 points on 18 shots is absurd. That's Jack pointed this out last night. That's 2 points per shot. Like anything over like a 1.2, 1.3 is pretty good. To generate 2 points per shot is nuts. 12 of 18 on field goal attempts. He was 6 of 9 on twos and 6 of 9 on threes, 6 of 7 at the free throw line. So he hit 6 threes, 6 twos, and 6 free throws. He also had 11 assists and only 3 turnovers in this game, which that's a ratio with as much as he's got the ball in his hands. That's a ratio the Timberwolves will absolutely accept. And he got 6 rebounds and he got 3 blocks. One of the most well-rounded games that we've seen from Ant, and there's all sorts of different stats floating around out there about the rarity of 36-10 and I don't know 36-5-5 games. I think it's like what I think I think the stat I saw was Stephon Marbury and Ant are the only 2 Wolves players to ever have 35 plus points and 10 plus assists in a game, which shouldn't be surprising because I mean, like, think about the limited number of triple doubles Cat got, and Garnett didn't have that many 35 plus scoring nights, right? He was doing a lot more on defense and on the glass and scoring consistently in the 25 to 30 range, but he didn't have that many 35 plus scoring nights. Towns had some triple doubles, but obviously the scoring wasn't there with all of those, and he didn't have that many triple doubles. Anyway, that's impressive. 35, 5 and 5, however you want to slice it and dice it. Like, some of the averages are unique to Wolves history too now. But this was just a stat stuffing performance in a good way. He was active. He was everywhere. The playmaking, the last 2 games, and I know turnovers were a problem in Phoenix, but if you go back and watch all of his assists from the games in Phoenix and in Salt Lake City this week, the assists are really impressive. There's very few of the, hey, I'm just swinging the ball around the perimeter and that guy takes a dribble and makes a shot and I get credit with an assist. These are like legit. He's generating shots for teammates. Very impressive stuff because he still manages to efficiently shoot the ball. Now, thankfully, Utah, one of the worst defenses in the league, very little paint protection, very little rim protection. And, that certainly helped out, outside of Walker Kessler, who only played 27 minutes in this game. They don't really have a whole lot of other rim protection on this team, and Ant used that to his advantage. And on the flip side, he followed up a career high 4 blocks on Wednesday night with 3 blocks on Thursday. So he was active himself defensively. And, like the perimeter defense for Minnesota, we'll talk about Jalen Clark. Like, Jalen Clark was awesome once again, got rotation minutes, got into the game in the first quarter. Rob Dillingham, I thought, was actually pretty good defensively. He did get beat off the dribble a couple of times, but there was like a possession where he got switched onto, who was it in the right corner? It might have been Markkanen or it was a bigger guy. It was a bigger guy that he ended up getting switched onto. And he like sized him up, slid his feet, defended him all the way to the middle of the paint. And then I think Rudy got a block on the possession. Like, it was textbook. It was either Rudy or Garza. Apparently I'm forgetting all the other players involved, but it was an incredible play by Dillingham in the second half of the game. And like the level to which he executed that, and the fact that he was ready to D up, even when he had a mismatch and it would have been easy to be like, this dude's going to score on me. He actually D'd them up and slid them into help defense, directed them into where he knew the help would be in the middle of the floor, instead of getting beat baseline, or instead of, just giving it up, in O-lane and letting the guy shoot over him. He actually did the right thing, like strategically, which shows a lot for Rob Dillingham, because I've talked about this before with Dillingham. The only way that he hits the ceiling of what he needs to be is if he does that defensively. He's going to get beat a little bit. Guys are going to shoot over him. It's going to happen. But he's got to fight through screens. He's got to compete against mismatches. He's just got to give it his all. And he did that in this game. He looked locked in defensively, and that matters. A small, below average defender who tries is a lot better than a small below average defender who doesn't. That's the easiest way to say it. All right, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the other roles that some guys played, some kind of, guys that normally don't play rotation minutes. Like, you might look at the box score and be like, 14 Luka Garza minutes and 17 Jalen Clark. Must have been a lot of garbage time. Well, there was, but a lot of that was actual rotation minutes for these guys. Julius Randle got hurt. We'll talk about that. And it looks like it could be something that keeps him out for a period of time. As of now, as of this recording, we don't know exactly how long.
Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's just icing on the cake. And the one bet you could look at with $5, NBA, Dallas Mavericks travel north to face the Detroit Pistons, and our favorite, but only just, FanDuel has the Mavs favored by a single solitary point. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59.
The Blazers just keep winning.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast.
Scoot Anderson was really good in this game. He started because Jeremy Grant did not play. We had no JG in this one. He was out with right ankle soreness. He twisted his ankle and missed. Only played 2 minutes in the second half the other night against Milwaukee and was not cleared in this one. So they started Scoot. We got an Ant, Scoot, Denny, Tumani, DeAndre Ayton starting lineup, and all Scoot did was take distinct advantage of it. What I like about Scoot is he's been jerked around a little bit. It's like he's playing his best basketball. He goes to the bench. He had some good games off the bench. He had some bad games off the bench. He kind of like played about as well as you can play, and was rewarded with just being like, the team is doing something different. Sorry, like health has dictated we're doing something different. And then when he had some rocky moments off the bench, he didn't fade. He wasn't like, dang it, I'm not getting rewarded for playing well, and now I'm playing bad again, and like have it be a big deal. You chop wood and carry water, before and after enlightenment, as some have said, and he was good in this game, and he continues to stay heater of a January. I'll mention more on that in a second. He was really good. I thought Shaedon Sharpe, particularly in that second quarter when he got going, he was really good. He had 9 in that second quarter, but it reminded me of his first shift against Milwaukee, where he had 9 points like right away in the first quarter, dunk, midi 3, and it's like same thing again. He kind of like gets going and is aggressive right away. He got into a little tiff with Goga Bitadze when he pushed Goga on a rebound, and Goga did not like it, and kind of went after him, and they had words, and it was like, is this the first time you've ever been pushed going for a rebound while playing? Like, I don't think it was like he pushed him. I think for sure Shaedon pushed him, but it wasn't dirty or anything, in my opinion. And Goga didn't like it, and Shaedon Sharpe let him know. He's like, "What do you want to do?" He didn't back down. He was, "What do you want to do?" And afterwards, Chauncey Billups and Scoot and DA were asked about it. But Chauncey Billups talking about like, I love a mad Shaedon Sharpe. He played mad. He played with energy. But it wasn't just one good quarter, one really good shift. This was a whole good game. And in the second half, Shaedon Sharpe's hitting shots like Shaedon Sharpe's taking and making shots with real confidence. He finished 9 of 14, including 3 of 6 from 3. Every time Shaedon Sharpe makes threes, you can see the vision. Obviously, that has not been a consistent thing for him this year, and maybe he's never like a high-level three-point shooter. But every time he flirts with being a high-level three-point shooter, it's like, yeah, that dude's going to be awesome. Like, he's going to be awesome because he can get to so many shots, and he can get to the rim, and he can score off the ball, and he has a lot of individual shot creation tonight. One midi that was just like so hard. Give me the ball, I'm going to shoot it. But he had a step back 3 from the right side that was just like in rhythm. That's a hard shot, but in rhythm, on balance, takes a good, looks really good coming out of his hand, cash. And every time they go in, it's like, it feels really good with Shea. He hasn't been bad over the last 2 weeks, but he's just been kind of meh, kind of quiet. Like, he had a pretty good game against the Bulls, but like in general, it's like he's kind of been fine. And here and there, he's had his minutes pinched just because of the way the rotation works now. But like, I don't think we've had one of these games from Shaedon Sharpe in probably 10 or 12 days, maybe 2 weeks, where it's like, oh yeah, he's really good. And like 23 on 9 of 14 shooting. He's not doing a bunch else in the box score, 2 points, 2 boards. But like, they crushed in his minutes. He played 33 minutes because he was rolling and Scoot was rolling every time he didn't play. and just played 21 minutes and 29 seconds. He played 21 and a half minutes. He was 3 of 9. And in fact, like among the Blazers regulars, he was the only one who kind of had a ho-hum game. I mentioned that Denny had a quiet night. He he still took 8 free throws because he's relentless and he's good at getting to the free throw line. But like 11, 5, and 5 is not nothing. He like still fills out the box score. It's just like, I think it was a good sign that they didn't need like, how about a 25, Denny's had some like 20-10 5 games recently or like just shy of it. And it's like they didn't need a crazy big night from Denny and they beat the doors off anyone. Obviously, if Denny has a good night too, that's also good. That's not what I'm trying to say. But like the balance, being able to do things in different ways. I thought Tumani, particularly early in the game, was such a good table setter and tone setter in terms of defensive intensity and defensive playmaking. Not a big box score night, but I think like watch the games, you'll really appreciate what he does. And DeAndre Ayton just had like a classic DeAndre Ayton game. One of those games where he just doesn't miss any shots. 10 of 12 on 22 points. But DeAndre Ayton did twice things you never see him do. Grabbed a rebound, pushed in transition, got inside the foul line, turned his back to a defender, and hit Shaedon Sharpe streaking on the fast break for a bucket. So DeAndre Ayton took like 7 dribbles and then made a pass to someone on the move for a direct assist. You never see him do that. He barely dribbles. And he certainly isn't like a natural playmaker, but he was just feeling it. And he was like, give me the ball, I'm ready to go. Got a loose ball rebound and push. And because he got going early, like he had 10 points in the first quarter, like DeAndre Ayton was playing with a little bit of juice. In the second half, he got the ball on the break and dribbled from behind half court all the way to the rim and dunked. He took like 8 dribbles before dunking. You never see him do that. And those aren't even like the special ones you appreciate with DA. It's like the jump shooting is what you appreciate because that's like the skill that makes him special. But he was 10 of 12 with 22 points. Just like just what DA does when DeAndre Ayton has good nights, he shoots like 85% from the field. He's such a rare player where it's just like, some guys have, I guess like Daniel Gafford does it, but Daniel Gafford does it with like dunks, right? And Gafford will go like 2 weeks without missing. But like DA's doing it with 14 footers. he just makes everything. And it was another really solid game from him. I don't think it was as loud and as physical, but you still saw some of that physicality, saw some of the intensity, and just like him playing with a little bit of joy, him playing like he's really feeling it, and him playing with a little bit of joy and taking and like dribbling up the court and taking some of that ownership. I'm ready to spread my wings. It's like kind of the thing that coaches and fans begging DA to do. Hey, can you do a little bit more? Obviously, I don't think you want him like dribbling coast to coast a whole lot. Like the handle isn't exactly super tight, but it's fun. It was fun to see him kind of just like, I'm going to do something. I'm feeling a certain type of way that I'm going to do something I just straight up never do. He was good. Scoot was good. Shea was good. First time in their career, according to Tom Haberstroh on social media, that all 3 of them have been over 20 points per game. Jabari Walker briefly came in. He hit a corner, hit a couple threes, hit a corner 3, and he played in this one. The Blazers kept this rotation tight again. They kept it tight. Donovan Clingan barely played, 7 minutes and 44 seconds. But it was basically the starters that I mentioned, Ant, Scoot, DA2, and Denny. Shaedon off the bench, Jabari off the bench, Delano off the bench. It was basically those 8 guys. Like Chauncey Billups is still playing this thing to win. Like this is not, let's play 11 guys and get some minutes and all of those things. I think Chauncey deserves credit for this. I've been critical of him, but mostly critical of him in terms of like process. There's been some X's and O's things that I have complained about, and then the offense being a little bit vanilla. But mostly with Chauncey, it's like process. Are you asking guys, maybe over the years, are you asking guys to do the things they're best at? Are you maximizing your guys? And maybe this season, it's like, are you on the same page with the rest of the franchise? But like, this team's playing their best basketball of the season. I think they had a stretch a couple weeks ago when they were playing their best basketball of the season, and then they took a little lull. And I think the real test of a team and a coach is like when you play well and then you start to suck again, how do you respond? And there have been times over the last, particularly the last season, where it was like when things went south, they just were south. The Blazers just lived below the equator from then on. It was just like, yeah, sorry, we're going to be bad now, and we'll have one game one out of the next 13 games we'll play pretty well, but for the most part, we'll have some bad times. We'll lose by 60 twice in the span of 2 months. It was a little more than 2 months. I believe it was 77 days, and by believe, I remember doing the pod. I think Chauncey Billups deserves credit for where they're at. He does. I'm always going to give players the credit first. That's how I am. I'm also going to criticize players first. I think players play. That's a thing I believe. Coaches do some stuff, and one of the things that Chauncey Billups has these guys is playing hard and free. And that has not always felt that way. Sometimes you got playing hard. Sometimes you got them playing free. You rarely got them like they were playing together and with purpose and with effort all in the same time. And also the shots went in. You make 12 of 25 threes. It feels a little bit better. But that isn't like a crazy 3-point shooting night. 25 threes is straight up not enough to even take. They got points when they wanted. They got points. They had 48 points in the paint and 24 points from the 3-point line. That's a pretty good little number, including when you take 25 free throws. They were a team playing with purpose.